you two on Saturday. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Held save the best for last, didn't they?
Wow.
You must be pleased, Christine. You're a brilliant partner.
I know, I am. I'm just a little bit pleased.
Not
Not too excited,
No,
really.
you hit the ground
you know,
running.
you saw my reaction on the launch
Yeah.
show. I was just a little bit excited. Not really, not really, but
Well, we've got. I mean, your costumes have been, built up quite a lot of attention over the years, haven't they? I mean, are you going to sex them up even more now? Because it's a great way to showcase the dancing and you and everything, isn't it? Having a good partner.
listen, this is not my fault. It's all budget. The budget is so small this year for the costumes. They just simply can't afford,
Much of our family
covering up,
all
I
the cuts
suppose.
have stretched right.
No, I think, listen, every dance has a different storyline and character, I suppose. From years of competing, wearing dresses like that for Latin is absolutely normal for us because that's the nature, of Latin sort of dances, I suppose. And to us, these dresses are what we would wear for like world competitions or whatever it is, And, but if you then dance a ballroom dance, I suppose it's totally different. Like this week, it's a foxtrot, and I'm completely covered up, and it's a ballroom dress, and it's a very beautiful dress. And I think you've got to think about basically the character, the style of each dance, and that's how our wardrobe, I suppose, accommodates as well.
Have you been told, or have you noticed a change in the costumes? Since television has been told to sort of tone it down a bit, or do you think they've seen
Were
more?
we told to tone it down? I haven't heard any of it, to be honest.
Tone
So
it
many
up.
people.
So producer hasn't mentioned anything to you?
No, I had absolutely no talk about it whatsoever, and I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it because to me, when we compete, this week there is one of the biggest competitions in the world held at Albert Hall, the internationals, and if you go and see it, it's exactly what you see on Saturday night on Strictly. No different. I
So
actually think that our costume is even more conservative.
So does it annoy you a little bit that you're feeling the pressure to sex down the outfit?
Well, like I said, I haven't been told anything about that, so I don't know. I really don't know anything about that, so...
No, I think the difference, I suppose, is that with something at the Albert Hall, that's a public event and it's a ballroom competition, whereas with Strictly, it's on family sort of viewing time, and with the X Factor, they've been told, Ofcom have issued these new rules and guidelines saying, there's kids watching kind of stuff.
I think this belongs in a politics department,
Yeah,
not an entertainment. This is
So
like
what do
you should
think
be
about
doing
it?
it
What do you think
political.
about the costumes? You've got kids.
Do you know, I have absolutely no concern about that. I'm concerned about doing the best dance on a Saturday night I possibly can. And it's a completely secondary thought to me. As long as my steps are in place, there are costume fitters and designers who take care of that. They know my measurements, and if I don't look, particularly pleasing in one thing, then they suggest something else, and we find a way of working through it. I have heard absolutely nothing about sexing anything down.
And I think the point is just a more extension of what was been said to X Factor, that they had to, they had
I'm
these
aware of the
I know
press.
you
I'm
are.
aware
And I
of the
just
press.
wondered, I suppose that's why we were asking about it, because as a dad, with your kids watching it, or do you look at it more as a stage?
There is absolutely nothing that would offend my children from watching Strictly last week, both Friday and Saturday night's show. Full stop.
I suppose it's not just the costumes; it's the gyrations. The Alex Jones routine.
Well,
I mean, is that?
We're talking about salsa. We're talking about cha cha cha.
Different from acting. If you're watching a film where people kissing or hugging each other,
it's a
that's already beyond what we do.
little sort of different, and there are rules and regulations after 9 o'clock, and I don't know quite how X Factor is going to deal with that or not, but this is a democracy. You can turn the channel over.
So how old are your children?
10 and 11. Yeah.
It did seem sort of last week that you were streets ahead of everybody else, really.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There is no secret, and I said this. I said this. This week is I just went out and did the best job I could do. And it worked on the night, and we got some great scores, and that's fantastic. This week is another week. I think they're going to be tougher on us this week for that very reason. And if we were lower down, they probably might have been a little bit more sort of comforting, you know. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's a long distance race. It's not a sprint, you know. And however, what I would say to you is I don't get too many nights in my career like last weekend, you know. And, you know, to have my children sort of meet me at the front doorstep, ringing me on the way home, sort of dying for me to come through the front door, going to school on Monday morning with their head held high rather than Dad had sort of done some dodgy shapes on Saturday night, you know, is always a plus in my world, you know.
How much training have you been doing this week?
This week has been, well, I mean, you know, we had a good solid 2 weeks building up to last week, so, you know, there was always that. The nerves, yes, you know.
Now you're back to 4 days.
4 days.
Get your routine down, and plus you do lots of other things like It Takes Two and interviews and all. So yeah, you have about 5 hours a day. But Jason's very dedicated, you know, person at rehearsals, so which is great, I suppose. And you know,
I think if you work hard, you know, you're going to get results.
You try your best. You never know what's going to happen on Saturday night, as he said himself. You know, it's a live show; anything can happen, but you just give your best, really, you know, during the week and try to prepare at the best ability.
I think that the basic bottom line, and going back to it, you know, Ofcom and all your things, is we're not saving lives, and this is entertainment, you know, and I think people need to be reminded that is the case, you know.
You're a very competitive guy, aren't you?
I'm ambitious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily competitive.
Oh, really?
I'm ambitious, yeah.
I mean, you want to win the show, don't you?
I'm ambitious in the sense that I don't want to walk out first, but I certainly would like to get to Wembley. Yeah, that would be great. What happens beyond that, I'm not, you know, is an absolute bonus.
So at this stage, you're not sort of thinking you've got your eyes set on winning the crown. You know,
I'm focused on doing the best job I can within the competition each week, and so, you know, yeah, that's my answer, you know.
And we've got to ask you about this whole, you know, Nancy's sabotage story that's been rumbling.
So yeah, what
I
was that?
I love the way it's like it's a sort of a
you know, we're so
plethora.
much into our old world and practicing and working with our
love
so
you
what
guys.
With
I have to
Nancy?
say, gets me excited. No, I know.
It's really good.
Well, I understand what you guys have got to do. You've got to find.
That goes on
Yeah, of course you do, and it's important to. You know, showbiz it up and make it all a bit of fun. I know nothing about it.
That's what everyone said so far.
Is there not much of gossip?
She's a big character.
Yeah.
Tell
She's
us about
a
what she
big
like
character.
when you know, when she's only speaking.
Well, she's just a big character. She's Italian, you know. She's you know, she's very warm. I have to say, she's extremely warm.
Sexy.
Well, you can see for yourself.
Woman, of course.
Yeah, I
Does she
mean,
engage with the rest of the group? Does she
absolutely.
mix?
I mean, we had a drinks thing and a dinner thing about 2 weeks ago, which I'm sure your different various photo agencies had someone stacked outside the front door taking photographs for, and you know, that was great.
I think what I like about her the most is that she's not afraid to be
She's
herself,
not afraid, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And she's
And
that beautiful
she's just
Italian woman, and she has all this thing about her, you know, she has that appearance, and she doesn't afraid to show it, and, you know, I think it's great, you know, I think it's wonderful. The show needs characters.
What's the nickname for her amongst the other dancers?
Oh, no, there's no nickname. There's no nickname yet. Maybe longer. I think we're still trying to recover from the last week, so I mean, think about things like that.
And what was it the whole dancing? I mean, how was she when she came off? Because there was these reports that she was very upset, and she did her best. She got through.
She was right before us, so
Sorry
we
for that.
were like in our own little world, I suppose, because we were already standing behind with the cameras in our faces, you know, because they danced right before us. So don't really know what happened after with her. But, it's a shame it didn't go maybe perfectly on the night for her, because actually the rehearsal was really good, and the whole ball thing was really kind of well played, you know, and just sad that it didn't go correct on the night, you know. But that's the live show.
Have you been interviewed yet by the detectives? You know, about Featherburgate and who?
What?
About the dress.
About the investigation.
Oh, no. Oh, man, honestly. This is you guys writing all of that. We don't know anything about it.
Fun story though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a good little story. I can see that one. That one's and she's a character. She's a big character, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But no one's bigger than the show, right?
Well,
Suppose not. I mean,
you don't see Anne Widdecombe's not back this year, so they're not just relying on one person, are they? So it's a soap, really, isn't it? It's a sort of a mixture of characters and a bit of panto thrown in there
so
too.
She's the villain that panto villain?
I don't think she's a villain at all.
No,
I don't.
she's
I don't
a
think
very
they've.
nice woman.
I don't think they've defined your characters yet. I
Yes.
think it's too early in the show to actually start
Yeah.
defining the characters. I think
It's
maybe this
true.
week we'll start to see what's. But I think I will say I think. The competition began this week, because I think everyone sobered up on Monday. And went, wait a second, this is a show and this is a competition, And I think some people, it's, those scores and the comments, people sort of think hard and fast about those sort of things,
I was interested.
I'm looking up my book on Australian colloquialisms, you see, from
To
Craig's.
pick them up.
Yeah.
I was interested in looking at It Takes Two when you were talking about your serious face, and sometimes you come across as very serious. You're aware of that? Do you work on that, or is it, are you serious?
I'm quite serious sort of chap.
Are you?
Yeah. But, I'm the type of guy that just goes nuts. I'll have a sort of a mad hour and a funny hour, and I'll lose it, and then I'm just... Yeah, I don't know. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning with babies, and my day at the moment is just full, and I go to bed at 9 o'clock absolutely exhausted, except on a Friday night when I'm like,
And when you go nuts for that hour, what happens?
Then he dances cha-cha-cha with a big smile.
yeah, there you go. I'm nuts for 1 minute 30. I don't know. Well, you saw It Takes Two. I think it's sort of.
I think it's good because we work really hard
go.
together, but then, we have moments when we just laugh and have a good joke to relax and all of that, and it's important because that balance is really important, You've got to kind of have moments when you're just relaxing and you're laughing and you're thinking about something else besides your dance, You can't just be, every hour just go. You have to relax, and he has a great sense of humour, so we have a good laugh here and there, so...
Has Joe met Jason yet? And
Yes, they all met each other.
Joe has met Jason.
Did he have a word?
Yes, and I'm
Joe-
his
Real
wife.
man,
We're all
Joe.
met.
Joe and little Joe.
Yeah,
Little Joe. Little Joe, yeah.
It's his son.
And mothers, wives,
They all came to watch
girlfriends
our
are
rehearsal
all
and-
welcome to come to our rehearsals. We believe the more people looking at us is the better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do they comment, or do they politely stand back?
They comment, I suppose, but in a nice, good way, and it's good to hear other people's perspectives too on the performance, I suppose. But it's a real test, when somebody who's very close to watching you, it's actually quite difficult, I guess. And this is our little test, before we go on Saturday night to perform in front of our so our family.
That said about family, do you think there's any chance of your mum coming to the show?
No.
What's the situation?
She lives in Australia.
Well, she might.
Yeah, no, she won't be here. Nor will my dad. So, no.
Are you in touch with them and they sort of wished you well?
My dad, absolutely. My mother, no.
There was a story earlier in the year that there was an interview and there was some kind of rift between you. Is that accurate or not?
That is something I won't comment on. I don't need to make any more comments on that. So.
Being that you are sort of quite ambitious, how nervous were you in the run-up to the show? Obviously, you told that you had extra weeks to prepare for that, but how nervous were you in the run-up to it, sort of from hearing that you were going on it? And then...
Well, the tough one for us last week was we were last. And when you are last on a show like this, having been in the business for 20 years, you do realise why you might be last. That adds another extra pressure as well. Do you know what I mean? But just I think, what I think about this thing, and I genuinely believe it's a big psychological game, actually. It's a sort of You know, you've got all these people. We're held in a sort of holding pattern, you know, waiting to come to land at, like, you know, BBC Studio One at various slots throughout the night. You know, some skid, some, you know, land perfectly. Some people get rounds of applause. You know, trays of, you know. It's like working for bloody BAA.
It's a psychological thing. I mean, in what sense do you think that's designed to sort of play on your mind, or?
Well, I don't think it's designed, but I think it's part of television. You know, I'm fascinated by that whole sort of that element. But on a show day for me, I stay quite quiet. I stay away from people, go to my room, you know, try and lie down.
Give me a sense of the sort of support that you sense for Jason. You know, I get this feeling there are hordes of people out there that are supporting you. I mean,
for me?
For you, yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, you hear it when you come down the stairs, you go in the performance as well. Do you have any sense of that?
I've never seen my text. I've never seen so many text messages in my life as I got on Saturday night. You know, so if that's an indication, just purely amongst friends and family, you know, that's great. You know, I think this show, if I'm honest, you've got to look at who watches this show, you know, and think about, you know, your audience as well, you know. And I think certainly for me, this is a show that suits my audience, you know, definitely. But again, I've been performing for a while now, and, you know, I still get anxious. Still, you know, awareness can be felt on two levels. You become so aware of where you're placed in the show. And the other thing is, you know, performing for this long is you know how to control or channel your nerves and your energy and your anxiety. So there's a two-way sort of street.
Do you think, you said there's sort of people are starting to realise that the pressure is on now.
Yeah,
or they did
definitely.
On Monday anyway. Has that sort of changed the dynamics within the group? You know,
do you know what I have to say? Sorry, your name again? Will. I have to say, Will, this is the first time today we've met after last Saturday, so I couldn't give you that answer until next week.
I mean, you must have got that sense from somewhere. I mean,
who told me that? I can't remember. Someone sort of said that. I think the scores sort of, you know, I think that the tabling, the way the show's structured, starts to sort of suggest, you know, I mean, you know, I think Lulu, for example, last week, who actually is a great performer and a great little mover, and just, you know, didn't have a great night, and it's going to happen to all of us, man. You know, it's going to happen to all of us. You've got to pick yourself up off that floor and keep going, and you've signed on, and you know, it's that's the sort of currency I'm talking about. You know.
Do you think obviously having the pay the way it is graded now, does that change it with people? Because before you could sort of go around muck about for a few weeks, it didn't matter.
I would argue most, if not all, these people aren't doing it for the money. Full stop. You know.
And you can't predict also how public gonna react and who they're gonna support or something. You know, you just never know. There's lots of things happening sort of weirdly. Sometimes lots of like maybe the most famous person on the show actually gets out really early. You know,
yeah, she's right.
You just never know. You like look at Dancing with the Stars in America. They had people like Michael Bolton, who was out the first week. You know,
David Hasselhoff.
David Hasselhoff, and
wonder what his shapes were like.
You know,
after the burger.
Not too bad actually, I must say.
Didn't he?
Yeah,
he was all right.
Yeah, he looked.
Wow.
So you can't predict.
Big hero of mine. The Hoffmeister.
Oh, you've
The
got Britain's Got
Hoffmeister.
Talent then next year.
Huh?
He's left Britain's Got Talent. He's left.
I don't know. Has he? I don't know.
What about X Factor? You're up against it this week. And how do you think, you know, what do you think is strictly selling point compared to X Factor?
Different shows. I mean, different audience, you know.
There's a crossover. There's a time crossover.
Time crossover. I know there is this week.
Is it?
How much is it?
It's half an hour.
Half an hour. It's going to be interesting. Look, I mean, you know, of course. Look,
Listen, we all have Sky nowadays, right? So we
that's a good answer.
one show or another.
She's
so.
been briefed.
Would you prefer not to go up against X Factor at all, though?
Well, I think I think that the heads of this company and ITV have probably engineered it so that they don't, of course there's going to be, audience share that's going to switch over and vice versa maybe, I think personally X Factor is a much younger audience, and I think we are sort of more of a, sort of core BBC audience. So I don't think there's a massive conflict, but it makes a great story if there is.
Going back to the X Factor and what we were talking about Ofcom earlier.
Exactly. I love it, the whole thing. It gets me excited. You guys get me excited because I just love the questions. And
the funny thing is, we don't even care. We don't even think about it. We care about doing our best on Saturday and go there and perform, And all of this, all this politics, it's not up to us, to be honest. And when we're placing the shows or first, the last, and even, we're just there worrying about our downs, I suppose.
Jason, do you think, did you watch X Factor last year? Would you watch it with your kids, or do you think it was too racy? And do you think is that one of the reasons why you've gone on Strictly, that it's less, it's something a bit more family viewing that you can watch with your family and your kids can watch and go into school and talk about, or do you not?
I don't think I have an opinion about that at all, and I would certainly be very happy to let my kids watch X Factor. I think, these sort of questions and storms are really down to parents, and how, you discipline your kids and how your kids are brought up, as opposed to sort of, I think there are certain guidelines that should be upheld, before 9 o'clock, but, sex on television, and sort of, stuff like that, but it's a pretty grey area, isn't it? Hence why it's not, even Ofcom can't really define what's
so
exactly.
Do you think Ofcom should lay off then? I get the feeling they're going to put out this sort of a bulletin every week if they're a complaint.
Really?
Do you think
I think you have to ask. I think you have to ask the Conservative governments, who handles this and who's been briefed on it enough to know what is. I can't give you an answer to that. I'm just a dancer on Strictly Come Dancing with 2 kids, But I think what I would say is, the internet. The landscape of Sky Television, the videos that get shown on VH1 and, all these other channels. Where do you draw the line? I'm asking you.
In what sense, though, do you mean that?
Do
you mean where do you draw the line in what can be shown on there?
Well, I'm sure Lady Gaga's latest video was shown at sort of on Saturday morning, on some sort of Sky channel, and kids can access it on YouTube. And so, if they really want to go and watch this stuff, they're going to go and watch this stuff. Is my answer.
Are you saying that it's ineffective or it's pointless in a way to try and stop this or try and cut down?
Well, terrestrial television is a very different landscape. So we all know that, But I think, as I said, going back to my question, I think I should probably put a full stop on the end of this one, is that it's all about education, and it's all about parents, and it's all about, making sure your kids make the right decisions in anything they do, whether it's school, whether it's in growing up, and that starts at home, that starts with the family, and if, that's what I believe.
One thing, you're obviously quite close with Gary Barlow. He said earlier on in this year when he became a judge that he didn't feel comfortable with last year's X Factor. He sort of said that in the final he felt it was too raunchy. Yeah. And he's obviously a friend, somebody who respects his opinion. Is that something that would affect your opinion, or is it just you think it's an individual choice?
No, I'd have my choice of, whether it is or isn't right. But,
because his kids are around the same age, and I do agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're both saying, that there is entertainment, there's costumes, there's dressing up, and I don't think anyone's got a problem with that. But I think when you've got sort of wrestling on television at 8:30 or 8 o'clock on a programme that is designed for kids to watch with their parents, it does make slightly uncomfortable viewing, and I think that's why people keep going on about it. They understand that people do wear sort of skimpy costumes on Strictly, and it's warranted on there because it's part of the ballroom scene. It's always been like that, and that's.
But this year costumes are no different from last year or year before or year before or year before. If you look back and you watch all of this, I think there were even more skimpy outfits before and all of that. Honestly, I don't understand why the subject sort of came up now, because that's always been like that. On Dancing with the Stars, it's always been like that. Even more, I would say, in America. You know, and Jason's right. I think, well, I don't have kids yet, but I think it's about family and about parents controlling and sort of making sure that the kids either watching it or not watching. It's up to individual families, you know.
But don't you think the broadcaster has a responsibility as well?
Well, I think.
We need to leave that as if really got to go.
Can we just get one of Jason's answer?
Well, I think it's obvious that Ofcom are there for a reason, and it should be proactive, and let's see what they come up with, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Programs on TV.
One last thing, on the rivalry between the two shows, has Gary been in touch about that, about the ratings?
No, but I'll give you one little thing. He did text me last week, and he said to me in the text, we have a little bit of fun between the two of us about, impersonating Brucey and, what a character he is. And, Brucey always says that if it's not going too well for you in the dance, he says, don't worry, you're my favourite, okay? Gary wrote me a text and said, well done, mate, great performance, and I have to say, you will never be Brucey's favourite. So that was so you got to look at that, but make sure you print that right, okay? Because there is a story behind it. It's a compliment rather than a downgrade. Yeah. So look, he's a big fan of this show, and he's a big fan of Saturday night television, and I think he will do incredible. I think he's an intelligent, articulate, funny, person who is about to, or you know the figures. Yeah. This show's the X Factor's on the way up, mate. It ain't on the way down. What series are they in? And he's definitely at the back steering a lot of those decisions.
What do you mean in terms of what?
I don't know.
Decisions on?
I just know that he's a very intelligent, articulate man who cares about the business and cares about talent and wants to see the best possible result for all of us on Saturday night television. Isn't that great?
That's quickly. Jason,
yeah.
Have you done this type of dancing before, like ever, or strictly like ball?
No, he hasn't. I'll tell you that.
No.
I'll answer that.
Sorry, I'm really beginner.
Yeah, no, never done it. Never done it. Guys, it's so good to see you. I really hope the results on Sunday are great. I'll be online reading.
I've got one for Helen, a friend as well.
Yeah.
I've never had sticky mayonnaise.
It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
Two.
That's for Helen, that one.
Hello.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Cheers, man. Cheeky. You're cheeky.
Jason, we've just got to do quick 3 minutes on the phone.
Okay.
We'll do it in here.
Okay, we're doing it here. You guys leave.